Welcome, folks. Now, we all know reality can be stranger than fiction and dumber than a Democrat's economic plan. We are truly living in an era where ideology trumps common sense. Literally. Today's absurdity: a group of stranded astronauts floating in the cold abyss of space had a golden ticket back to Earth, courtesy of Elon Musk. But our former President Joe Biden, in all of his senile wisdom, said, nah, let them drift. I guess when you've spent your whole presidency launching disasters, you start confusing them for successful missions. This is the left in a nutshell. Demonize the people who actually built things, then sabotage your solutions out of sheer pettiness. So buckle up, because we're about to break down a whole slew of Democrats being allergic to competence.
Elon Musk has said that he made the offer to bring you guys back earlier and that it was denied. My first question is that true? And if so, what would that have looked like? Was he offering to make another flight, push seats on another flight? Could you give us some background there?
I can only say that Mr. Musk, what he says is absolutely factual. We have no information on that, though, whatsoever. What was offered, what was not offered, who it was offered to, how that process went. That's information that we simply don't have. So I believe him. I don't know all those details, and I don't think any of us really can give you the answer that you would be hoping for.
Shameful. No other way to describe it, because Biden's pettiness wasn't just an annoyance. It literally left astronauts stranded in space longer than necessary. We now know that Elon Musk did offer to bring them home earlier, and one of the astronauts, Butch Wilmore, has outright said that he believes Musk's claim that Biden's administration rejected the offer. But instead of giving a straight answer, NASA and Biden's people played the usual game of, we don't have the details on that. Right. A major offer from the CEO of the most important private space company in the world, and somehow no one knows what happened to it. That's not incompetence. It's straight up obstruction. And the reason? Musk himself has said it. Biden didn't want Trump looking good before the election. That's it. It wasn't about safety, logistics, or protocol. It was about politics. NASA had the option to work with Musk and get these astronauts home months earlier, but Biden's team would rather drag their feet than give Trump or Musk any kind of win. In fact, at one point, SpaceX had docked a Crew Dragon capsule at the International Space Station and was ready to go. Yet the return was delayed with vague excuses. This is what happens when a government prioritizes political grudges over actual problem solving. Anyway, now Biden is out and Trump is back into office, but the damage is already done. The astronauts are finally coming home, but not before being forced to endure months of delays for no good reason. Wilmore and Williams were professionals about it, but let's not pretend they weren't caught in the middle of yet another petty partisan stunt by the most bitter and vengeful administration in modern history. Musk offered help, Biden's people blocked it, and now that the truth is coming out, all they can do is pretend they don't know what happened. Typical Democrat modus operandi. And there's no greater example of that than Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who recently made an appearance at a House Oversight Committee where the mayors of 4 different sanctuary cities were questioned as far as why they upheld the policies they did. And wow, her entire appearance was brain-meltingly awful.
You belong here. This is your home. Boston es tu hogar. Boston, 这里caio. 这是你的家. This is our city. We are the safest major city in the nation because we are safe for everyone.
You can't make this stuff up, folks. That's Boston's mayor telling illegal immigrants, you belong here. This is your home, during a House Oversight hearing about the failed policies of Democrat-run sanctuary cities. Now, last time I checked, a home is something you earn, not something you break into. But apparently in Boston, laws don't matter, borders are meaningless, and citizenship is just a pesky little technicality. Meanwhile, actual American citizens, homeless vets, struggling families are being told to wait in line while taxpayer money is being funneled into housing and services for people who aren't even supposed to be here. But hey, as long as it makes the Democrats feel good about themselves, who cares about the actual citizens they swore to serve? Am I right?
Mayor Wu, the other day, you stunningly expressed sympathy for the man responsible for the knife attack, not the brave officer who stopped him. Where is the sympathy for the men and women in law enforcement trying to keep us safe?
Congressman, check your facts.
It's my time.
Check your facts. Watch the video.
It's my time.
I did not express sympathy for that
Where is the
individual, but
sympathy
for their
for the
family.
victims?
And any individual
I haven't
whose
asked
life
you a
is
question.
lost is a
It's
tragedy.
appalling to me that we even have to ask for sympathy for victims instead of violent criminals, but here we are.
Well, finally, someone is holding Mayor Wu accountable for expressing sympathy not for the victims of a knife attack, but for the attacker himself, which we saw earlier this week. And what's Mayor Wu's response to being called out? She raises her voice and snaps. Check your facts, watch the video. Classic Democrat move. Deflect, deny, then play the victim when people dare to call them out. Now, Wu claims she wasn't sympathizing with the attacker, just their family. Right. Because when a violent criminal tries to kill innocent people, the first priority should be making sure their family feels supported. Meanwhile, the actual victims and the officers who put their lives on the line, oh, not a word for them. Who cares about them? This is just another example of Democrats bending over backward to excuse criminals while treating law enforcement like the real problem. And let's not forget, Michelle Wu acts offended that people even dare to ask her where her sympathy is for the victims. That's the real giveaway. This isn't about facts, it's about priorities. And Wu just made it clear whose side she's on. And it sure as hell isn't law-abiding Bostonians. And the greater level of irony for me here is that she clearly chose to wear her ash on her forehead to this hearing. This isn't something she had to do, folks. Not that she didn't have to go to mass to get her ash, but she didn't have to outwardly express her faith at a hearing like this. It seems very calculated so that she can present herself to the public in this light of being empathetic and compassionate.
Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering city
You don't
services,
ask
so
about
we
how
don't
much
have
money
that
the city of Boston has spent on illegal immigration?
We
Are you
don't
out of your mind?
distinguish between immigration status.
Do you
as
manage
part
your
of our
budget
city
or not,
policies.
Mayor Wu?
That is how we keep
Mayor
our city
Wu,
safe.
do you manage
we
your budget or
have the
not?
numbers to prove it. I manage my budget. I have a AAA bond rating dating back 10 years.
So to the city of Boston,
budget.
just understand that your mayor does not care how much of your resources she has spent on people who are not citizens
The city of Boston is sick of having people outside Boston.
Well, if that isn't peak Democrat incompetence, Michelle Wu is asked a very basic question about how much taxpayer money is being spent on illegal immigrants, and she completely falls apart. Instead of answering, she stumbles, deflects, and starts rambling about bond ratings because apparently knowing where your city's money actually goes is too much to ask for her. And Representative Byron Donalds nailed it. He says, just understand, Boston, your mayor does not care. She doesn't want to know how much is being drained from Boston's budget to house, feed, and provide services for illegal immigrants, because acknowledging that number would expose just how much her administration prioritizes them over actual citizens. It's all by design. Keep it vague, avoid accountability, and keep taxpayers in the dark. Bottom line, if your mayor can't even answer how much of your money she's throwing away, she shouldn't be managing a city at all. But hey, as long as the virtue signaling stays strong, who cares if Boston's own citizens are the ones paying the price? Am I right?
There's no capacity that's too
Congressman,
much.
respectfully, I'm the mayor of Boston. I don't get to decide who comes into our country and where they go after that. Our job is to keep people fed and healthy and safe when they arrive in our city.
Now, that was Mayor Wu's retort to being asked if there's any limit to how many illegal immigrants her city can take in. And instead of giving a real answer, she dodges and says it's Boston's job to feed and shelter everyone who shows up. No concern for resources, no thought for actual Bostonians who pay the taxes, just an open-ended commitment to turn the city into a free-for-all welfare center. This is a standard Democrat playbook. Act like basic limits don't exist, avoid responsibility, and dump the consequences onto law-abiding citizens. Wu pretends she has no say in this crisis, yet she's the one rolling out the red carpet with city-funded benefits, draining Boston's budget while actual residents struggle with crime, homelessness, and skyrocketing costs. The message is clear. If you're a tax-paying Bostonian, you come second. Illegal immigrants, hey, unlimited access to your city's resources, no questions asked. And if you don't like it, hey, too bad.
Mayor Wu, I quoted Tom Homan, the so-called border czar, saying that he wanted to bring hell. He was bringing hell to the city of Boston. What did you understand him to mean by that?
Let's talk about Tom Homan. Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath and let's ask him some questions. I am here to make sure that the city of Boston is safe. Others may want to bring hell. We are here to bring peace to cities everywhere.
Oh, this is rich. Michelle Wu, the same woman who refuses to acknowledge the chaos her own policies have unleashed, now has the audacity to attack Tom Homan, the guy who actually understands what border security is, for supposedly bringing hell to Boston. Let's break this down, because Wu's rhetorical sleight of hand is as transparent as her complete inability to answer basic budget questions. First off, Wu plays the victim here, claiming that Homan is lying about her city. But what exactly did he lie about? Boston is facing an illegal immigration crisis, and even Wu can't deny that the city is bleeding taxpayer money to house and care for illegal immigrants. She just refuses to give the actual numbers. That's not a right-wing conspiracy. It's straight from her own incoherent responses when pressed on how much Boston is spending. And Homan, he's not bringing hell to Boston. He's pointing out the obvious, that Democrat-run sanctuary cities have turned themselves into unsustainable, lawless messes. Then she pulls the moral superiority card. We are here to bring peace. Oh, really? So peace looks like Boston becoming overrun with unvetted illegal immigrants, draining resources from citizens who actually built the city. Peace looks like prioritizing non-citizens while crime and homelessness spiral out of control, because last time I checked, the only people bringing hell to Boston are the incompetent politicians who refuse to enforce the law, not the people trying to fix the border disaster. And let's not ignore her pathetic attempt to defend her police commissioner. Wu suddenly wants to act like she's a champion of law enforcement, but let's be honest, her party has spent the last decade demonizing cops, gutting police budgets, and defending criminals over officers. The second it's politically convenient, she shifts gears and pretends she's tough on crime. Sorry, but you don't get to spend years undermining law enforcement and then demand respect when it suits you. Now, if Mayor Wu wants to take credit for Boston's lower crime rates, then she should also be willing to acknowledge the real reasons behind the decline. And spoiler alert, they have nothing to do with her leadership or Democrat sanctuary city policies. First, crime trends are long-term, and the downward trajectory in Boston's violent crime rates started years before Wu took office. The so-called Boston Miracle, community policing initiatives, and targeted crime intervention programs were all put in place decades ago and have been consistently refined over multiple administrations. According to the Boston Foundation's 5-year review of criminal justice policies, Massachusetts saw its incarceration rate drop nearly 50% over the past decade, with the most significant reductions occurring after 2018. At the same time, investments in crime prevention, drug treatment, and reentry programs helped to drive down violent crime across the state. Wu had nothing to do with these foundational strategies, but she's more than happy to take credit for their continued success. Second, claiming credit for low crime while refusing to acknowledge rising concerns over public safety is pure political dishonesty. While homicides and shootings may be down, Boston has seen a surge in quality of life crimes, theft, public drug use, vagrancy, and disorderly conduct, problems that Wu's sanctuary city policies and soft-on-crime approach have directly exacerbated. According to Boston Police Department data, aggravated assaults increased by 3% in the past year, while shoplifting spiked by 30%. Business owners and residents have repeatedly voiced concerns that retail theft, open-air drug use, and public disorder are getting worse. But Wu continues to dismiss these issues as if they don't exist. She can cherry-pick statistics all she wants, but ask the people actually living in Boston if they feel safer under her leadership, and you'll get a very different answer. And finally, Wu's refusal to set a limit on illegal immigration and her blind commitment to sheltering everyone who enters a city without a plan to handle the financial and social strain directly threatens Boston's long-term stability. The real test of a leader isn't riding the wave of policies put in place by others. It's how they handle new crises. And by every measure, Wu is failing. If she's so confident in her record, why does she keep dodging basic questions about her budget and spending priorities? According to city finance reports, Boston has spent tens of millions on services for illegal immigrants. Yet Wu claims she has no idea how much the total cost is, because deep down, she knows the truth. Boston isn't safer because of her. It's safer in spite of her. At the end of the day, Wu is just another Democrat official throwing a tantrum because someone dared to tell the truth about what's happening under her watch. She doesn't have the facts on her side, so she resorts to melodrama and empty platitudes. But no amount of performative outrage is going to change reality. Boston is suffering because of her policies, and no matter how much she grandstands, the people paying the price aren't buying it anymore. Now, there were several other notable moments in this hearing, each with a different mayor from one of these woke cities. However, this specific moment with the mayor of Chicago was truly eye-opening.
On June 12, 2023, you received Hugo Boss cufflinks and a personalized Mont Blanc pin. Do you know who gave you those?
So I did not receive those personally. The city of Chicago
received those on behalf
and
of the
that's
city of
right, on
Chicago.
behalf of the city of Chicago,
I
every
understand
mayor
the difference.
in the history of Chicago who has
who
provided
gave those
gifts to the city of Chicago.
Do you know who gave those to the city of Chicago?
So again, on behalf of the city of Chicago, there
It's
are
a yes
gifts
or no
that are
question.
received, but I do not accept. Those are not my personal gifts.
You don't know.
Those are the gifts of the city of
on March
Chicago,
18th,
and that's why you are aware that they exist, because they're within the law.
Time here, sir. On March 18th, 2024, you received a Gucci tote bag. Do you know who gave you that? Who gave the city of Chicago that?
Again, I was here and I was invited.
I'll also
to
take
respond
that as
to the
on March
questions
19th,
around
2024,
welcoming
the
city, and I'm
city of
happy to answer
Chicago
any of those
received
questions.
A Givenchy bag, a Kate Spade purse, and Carucci shoes. Do you know who gave the city of Chicago those?
Again, I was brought.
I'll take that as a no. I'm reclaiming my time
to respond
here, sir. I am reclaiming my time.
Chicago,
this
what a welcoming
raises
city
serious
ordinance
ethical
is.
concerns. You are providing an enormous amount of aid to illegal aliens, aiding and abetting criminals who have come into our country illegally. And you yourself are receiving an enormous amount of gifts, and you won't even tell us who they're coming from. That raises
time is up.
serious ethical concerns.
We have a 5-minute rule.
Another day, another Democrat mayor drowning in corruption while pretending to be the moral authority. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, the same guy who can't seem to keep his own city from imploding, is now caught fumbling through a list of luxury gifts. Hugo Boss cufflinks, Mont Blanc accessories, Gucci tote bags, and somehow expects everyone to believe these weren't personal gifts because, you know, when Chicago is struggling with crime, homelessness, and an illegal immigration crisis, what the city really needs is a designer handbag collection. Now let's talk about his pathetic attempt at dodging accountability. When asked who gave him these gifts, Johnson stammered, deflected, and desperately tried to separate himself from them using the old, "I didn't personally receive them, they were for the city" excuse. Classic political doublespeak. If these gifts were truly meant for the city, then why is he so evasive about their origins? Why not just provide the names? This isn't some bureaucratic oversight. It's the same corruption that has plagued Chicago for decades, wrapped up in designer packaging. And let's not ignore the bigger issue here. While Johnson is busy stockpiling luxury goods, he's also burning through taxpayer dollars to aid and abet illegal immigrants flooding into Chicago. His administration is funneling resources into sheltering and providing benefits for people who aren't even supposed to be here, while actual Chicagoans, many of whom are struggling to afford basic necessities, get the short end of the stick. And when confronted about it, he dodges, deflects, and pretends there's nothing to see here. Johnson isn't leading, he's looting. Chicago deserves better than a mayor who treats public service like a personal shopping spree while his city crumbles under crime, corruption, and chaos. But I guess that's just the Democrat way. Anyway, folks, believe it or not, one of the most embarrassing moments from the House oversight hearing didn't come from one of the Democrat mayors. It came from Massachusetts Representative Ayanna Pressley, who, looking like Disney's remake of Lex Luthor, managed to outdo them all.
Without objection, so ordered. We've put it in the record.
I haven't entered it.
You have what?
Mr. Chair, can I have several articles. I need to enter them. Let me just go ahead with what the articles are. What they speak to.
What's the next article?
Let me proceed. Data from Texas shows that U.S.-born Americans commit more rape and murder than immigrants.
Listen, this trend of you all trying to get thrown out of committee so you can get on MSNBC is going to end. We're not going to put up with it.
This is my procedural right as a member of this committee
you can go with Mr. Frost and Mr. Green.
I'm reclaiming my time.
That's what you want. No. Ms. Presley, I have been very accommodating to you. Mr. Subrignon,
and I take particular umbrage as a survivor of sexual violence. I will enter into the record. This is my right. Thank you.
No. It is Mr. Subrignon.
Mr. Chair.
No, you know the process of unanimous consent. You are not recognized.
I have several articles to enter into the record.
Mr. Subrignon, if you don't go, we're going to recognize Mr. Timmons.
Oh, look, another classic Ayanna Pressley performance where the goal isn't debate or discussion, but pure theatrics. This time, she's waving around articles, desperately trying to get them into the record, and then screeching when she doesn't get her way. And what's her big contribution to the discussion? A misleading claim that Texas data somehow proves U.S.-born Americans commit more rape and murder than immigrants. Wow. Now, let's break this down because this is a textbook case of manipulating statistics to push a political agenda. First, this claim conveniently ignores a key distinction: legal versus illegal immigrants. Most studies that compare crime rates between immigrants and U.S.-born citizens lump in legal immigrants who are already vetted with illegal ones who have not been. And guess what? The crime rate among legal immigrants is lower, but that says nothing about the dangers of mass illegal immigration. Presley and her ilk rely on this sleight of hand to make it seem like any concerns about illegal immigrant crime are just racist fear-mongering. Second, if Presley actually cared about data, she would acknowledge what's happening in cities like New York, Chicago, and Denver, where illegal immigrants, many with criminal records, are being dumped into communities with zero vetting. Just this year, an illegal alien in New York, who had already been arrested multiple times, was caught on video brutally beating a woman inside her own apartment building. And what happened? Thanks to soft on crime policies pushed by people like Presley, he was released back onto the streets. That's the reality she wants to ignore while pretending American citizens are the real problem. At the end of the day, they hate you. That's what is happening here. And let's talk about Comer's response, because he's exactly right. This whole stunt wasn't about facts. It was about Presley trying to get a viral moment for MSNBC. The grandstanding, the shouting, the refusal to follow procedure, it's all part of the same playbook. When the left doesn't get their way, they throw a tantrum, cry racism or sexism, and hope their media buddies clip out a soundbite to make them look like some brave warrior for justice. Now, what Ayanna and the Democrats conveniently leave out is that their entire argument is based on cherry-picked data designed to mislead people into thinking illegal immigrants commit fewer crimes than American citizens. They love throwing around studies that lump in legal immigrants with illegals to artificially lower the crime rate. But when you actually break it down per capita, the numbers tell a very different story. Take Texas, for example, the study that Ayanna tried to introduce to this hearing. The Texas Department of Public Safety reported that in 2021, illegal immigrants accounted for 4.7% of all arrests, while making up 6.8% of the state's population. And that sounds great until you realize they conveniently exclude federal crimes like illegal entry and re-entry after deportation, which only illegal immigrants can commit. When you factor those in, the crime rates jump significantly. And let's talk about federal crime. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, illegal immigrants made up a staggering 64% of all federal arrests in 2018, despite being only 3.2% of the U.S. population. That's not just immigration violations. That includes violent crimes, drug trafficking, and human smuggling. The Government Accountability Office analyzed over 250,000 criminal aliens and found they averaged 7 arrests per person, which is far higher than native-born criminals. So Ayanna can grandstand all she wants, but the data shows illegal immigrants commit a disproportionate share of crimes compared to their population size. And let's not forget the biggest scam in all of this: sanctuary cities like the ones Democrats run. These policies make it impossible to track how many crimes are actually committed by illegal immigrants because local law enforcement is barred from even asking about immigration status. Add that to the fact that many crimes in illegal immigrant communities go underreported because victims fear retaliation or deportation, and you start to realize just how manipulated these numbers are. So next time Ayanna Presley or any of her Democrat buddies try to peddle this nonsense, ask them to explain why illegal immigrants make up the majority of federal arrests, why they have significantly higher recidivism rates, and why their crime rate is hidden behind underreporting and legal loopholes. But they won't answer because the truth destroys their entire narrative. Look, at the end of the day, Ayanna Presley wasn't even trying to make a serious argument. It was just another bad faith attempt to shift the narrative. Presley doesn't want to talk about illegal immigrant crime because it exposes the complete failure of the policies she supports. And when confronted with reality, her only response is to scream, deflect, and play the victim, which is typical Democrat at this point. And speaking of screaming, coming in hot like a nightmare is Maxine Waters from what looks like a Zoom call from hell.
And we don't know everything that Elon Musk has done with his high technology ass. We don't know what he's been accused of by some as it may relate to the election. But we're not going to give up in investigating and finding it, turned it over to him.
Does Maxine Waters understand that she doesn't have to get that close to the camera like she's about to give it a rectal exam? Like, cameras can see you as long as you're standing in front of them. Anyway, let's talk about the tactical absurdity of this claim. Waters is throwing out a completely baseless accusation without a shred of proof. Why? because that's the Democrat playbook. When they lose, it's never their fault. It's Russian bots, voter suppression, hacked elections, anything but the reality that their policies are driving voters straight into the arms of Trump and Republicans. She knows there's no evidence, but she also knows the media will amplify this garbage without demanding receipts. Next, let's talk about how ridiculously hypocritical this is. The same Maxine Waters who spent years mocking election fraud claims, calling them dangerous and a threat to democracy, is now casually tossing out her own election fraud narrative because apparently paranoia is acceptable when it comes from the left. Let's not forget, this is the same party that spent 4 years screaming about Russia collusion, only for their own investigation to collapse under the weight of its own lies. Now, instead of Russia, it's Elon Musk. The goal is the same here: delegitimize elections they don't win. And why Elon? Because he dared to buy X, because he's running Doge and exposing their corruption. Ever since Musk pulled back the curtain on how Democrats worked with social media platforms to suppress information, ever since he exposed how they've been grafting millions of dollars to support their insane causes globally, he's become enemy number one. So now Waters and her allies are throwing out wild accusations in an attempt to smear him, hoping the media and their low information voters will just go along with it. At the end of the day, this isn't about election security or hacking. It's about desperation. Democrats are losing control of the narrative, and Waters, like the rest of them, is grasping at straws. But here's the reality. Musk didn't hack the election. The only thing he hacked was the left's monopoly on information, and that's why they can't stand him. And just when you thought the IQ points couldn't drop any lower, in enters Jasmine Crockett.
And I really quickly want to touch on something because I know that many of you prepared for today's hearing by making sure that you got a little bit of information about immigrants and crime in your cities. Let me ask each of the mayors, just yes or no. Have any of you been made aware of any immigrant that has had 34 felony convictions that has still been able to roam around in your cities? Anyone?
No, ma'am.
34 felony convictions.
No, Congresswoman.
From the immigrants. Anybody?
I'm not aware.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious because we are so concerned about crime, and I know that my Republican colleagues would never want anybody with 34 felony convictions roaming around because that could be a danger to the community, but I will move on.
Well, that was painful. Jasmine Crockett, in her never-ending quest to sound clever, just made possibly the worst analogy in political history. She thought she was landing a mic drop moment, but instead she gave us a master class in false equivalency, misdirection, and pure Democrat nonsense. First, her argument is a classic straw man. She sets up a fake premise. Illegal immigration isn't a real crime issue because there's no record of an illegal immigrant with 34 felony convictions roaming free, as if that somehow invalidates the very real concerns Republicans have, and most Americans have, about illegal immigration and crime. That's like saying, oh, you're worried about bank robberies. Well, I don't see any reports of a guy robbing 500 banks in one day, so I guess it's not really a problem. It's intellectually bankrupt and completely ignores the reality of illegal immigrant crime. And let's talk about why this comparison is so ridiculous. She's obviously trying to make a dig at Trump, who was indicted on 34 charges, most of which were politically motivated bookkeeping violations, not violent crimes. But even if we play along with her analogy, Trump hasn't been convicted of a single felony, while we have actual illegal immigrants who, with multiple violent convictions, who are roaming the streets because of soft on crime sanctuary city policies that Crockett and her Democrat colleagues, who are right in front of her, support. Here's the reality she's trying to ignore. Illegal immigrants have been arrested and convicted for violent crimes, including murder, rape, and drug trafficking, and thanks to sanctuary city protections, many of them are released back onto the streets. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, illegal immigrants committed more than 297,000 criminal offenses in Texas alone, including homicide, kidnapping, and sexual assault. Again, the Government Accountability Office found that criminal aliens arrested in the U.S. had an average of 7 prior arrests per person. And let's not forget the shocking number of illegal immigrants arrested for child sex crimes. In North Carolina alone, hundreds have been charged with these horrific offenses in recent years. So no, Congresswoman, Republicans and the majority of Americans aren't sitting around waiting for the mythical 34-time convicted illegal immigrant to appear before they care about crime. They're trying to stop actual repeat offenders from being let back onto the streets, while Democrats like you and these mayors are actively fighting to keep sanctuary city policies in place that shield them from deportation. And let's be real, if an American citizen had 34 felony convictions, Democrats would be the first ones demanding stricter sentencing laws, more government surveillance, and endless investigations. But when it's an illegal immigrant, suddenly crime statistics don't matter, and it's all just a big joke to mock Republicans. That's the game here. At the end of the day, Crockett's analogy is so bad that it actually proves the exact opposite of what she's going for. She just admitted that if a criminal had 34 felony convictions, it would be a problem. So why is she and the rest of the Democrat Party working overtime to ignore and dismiss illegal immigrants who already do have violent convictions and are being protected under her party's policies? The answer is simple. Democrats just don't care about public safety. They care about protecting their political narrative and this globalist agenda, which they're using to blue lock states. And when the facts don't fit, they just resort to pathetic, brain-dead comparisons like this one. But as is the case, it can always get dumber. Enter Democrat pseudo-celebrity on X, JoJoFromJerz. This is what she had to say on Piers Morgan.
Give me a simple answer, Jojo. What is a woman, Jojo?
Yes. Well, a woman is whatever. If you feel like you're a woman, then you're a woman. I know I'm a woman. I identify as a woman.
So if I feel like a woman right now, I'm a woman?
I'm not threatened.
Hang on.
What would you feel like? If you feel like you're a woman, it's your identity, sure.
So hang on, just to be clear.
I'm sorry. What's a man? Piers, what's your definition of a man?
Just to be clear.
What's your definition of a man?
So just to be clear, if I feel like a woman right now, I am a woman. Is that your position?
And if you feel like you are a woman, Piers, and you want to walk around identifying as a woman, it is not my prerogative to tell you that you cannot.
Am I a woman?
I identify as a woman. What is a man, Piers? What is a man?
Oh, a man is
Donald Trump a man?
Human.
Can I?
That's it.
Piers, can I jump into that question?
Adult human male.
Adult human male.
Adult human male is a man.
Adult human
biological male, dude.
Yes. And a woman is an adult human female. Adult human female.
That's what a woman is. I am a woman. I identify as a woman.
Okay, but just to be clear,
can I answer that question?
hang on, Matt. I'm going to bring Matt in. I just want to
Matt, you
double
really
down on
need to
this.
stay out of this one, friend.
I just want to be clear, Jojo.
You don't want to go here, Matt.
Jojo said if you feel like a woman, you're a woman. So, Jojo, final time. If I now say I feel like a woman.
It's not about
No, sorry,
biology,
I'm asking you a
identity.
question. Stop talking.
What?
If I now say I feel like a woman, am I a woman? Am I a woman? If I say
if
I
you
feel
like a woman, you're a woman.
Wow.
What does that mean, though? What does that even mean?
Another brilliant moment in progressive intellectualism. JoJoFromJerz, the Democrat influencer who somehow managed to get humiliated on live TV by the easiest question of all time. What is a woman? You'd think a self-proclaimed champion of women's rights would be able to answer that in, I don't know, half a second. But instead, we got a stuttering, incoherent word salad about feelings and identity that not even she seemed to believe in. Now, let's break this down because this is exactly why normal people are done entertaining this nonsense. First, JoJo immediately defaults to the subjective definition. A woman is whatever you feel like a woman is. It sounds deep, right? No, it's actually meaningless. It's a circular definition that explains nothing. Imagine if someone asked, what is water? And I said, water is whatever you feel like water is. That doesn't tell you anything about its properties, its function, and how to identify it. It's intellectual cowardice disguised as inclusivity. Then the minute she gets pressed by Piers when he says, so if I feel like a woman, does that make me a woman? She completely crumbles. Instead of standing by her absurd logic, she starts deflecting, well, what's a man? The classic dodge the question by asking one back technique. It's the same trick every progressive uses when they know their argument is falling apart. Instead of answering, they desperately try to put their opponent on the defensive. But Piers wasn't playing along, and it showed. And let's not forget the sheer hypocrisy on display here. JoJo, like every other leftist influencer, screams about protecting women's rights, but the second she's asked to define what a woman is, she completely short circuits. Newsflash, if you can't define what a woman is, you can't advocate for women's rights. You can't scream about sexism, equal pay, or reproductive rights if Woman is just an arbitrary label that anyone can slap on themselves at any time. And this is the bigger issue. This isn't just some fringe internet weirdo struggling with basic biology. This is the mainstream Democrat position now. They have backed themselves into a corner where they cannot acknowledge biological reality because their entire ideology is built on denying it. That's why they look ridiculous every time they try to explain their position, because it's not based on truth, reason, or science. It's based on feelings, and feelings collapse the moment they're questioned. At the end of the day, this was a total train wreck for JoJo from Jerz, but honestly, it was a win for the rest of us, because every time a Democrat gets put on the spot and proves they can't answer the most basic question imaginable, it just reminds people why this ideology is unserious, anti-science, and completely detached from reality. And the more they expose themselves, the faster the pendulum swings back to common sense. This is where we are now, folks, living in a world where basic truth has been sacrificed at the altar of ideology, where people who claim to fight for women can't even define what a woman is, and where the loudest voices in the room crumble the second they're asked to explain themselves. But here's the real question. How much longer are people going to pretend this makes sense? How much longer will rational people be expected to nod along to obvious nonsense just to avoid offending the mob? The real issue isn't just the absurdity of their arguments, it's the expectation that you accept them without question or reason. Because the moment you stop asking questions, the moment you let them dictate reality, that's when they win. So ask yourself, who benefits from a society where truth is optional, where definitions shift at will, and where reality bends to feelings? Because it sure as hell isn't you. Anyway, folks, you tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.